The first cry didn't echo across the savannah the way it should have. It didn't carry strength or confidence or the promise of survival. It was faint, trembling, almost lost in the dry wind that swept across the cracked earth. Beneath the fading glow of dawn, a newborn giraffe calf struggled to stand, his impossibly long legs folding beneath him again and again as if the world itself was refusing his presence. In the wild, the first few minutes of life are everything. You either rise or you don't make it. But for this cow, it wasn't just about standing. It was about being accepted. And from the very beginning, something felt off. The herd had already begun to move. Towering figures, graceful yet distant, stepping forward without hesitation. The calf's coat was different, slightly pale, his movements clumsy, his balance uncertain. In a world where weakness attracts death, difference is often seen as a danger. His mother lingered for a moment, her large eyes fixed on him, torn between instinct and something deeper she couldn't quite understand. The calf let out another soft cry, trying to reach her, trying to close the growing distance between them, but the herd didn't stop, and in the end, neither did she. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving behind nothing but dust, silence, and a life that had barely begun. Alone, the calf tried again to stand. His legs trembled violently, his body swaying, before collapsing once more into the dirt. The sun climbed higher, and with it came the heat. Relentless, unforgiving. Every instinct inside him urged him to move, to follow, to survive, but his body refused to respond. And as the hours passed, another presence began to appear from the distance. Low, haunting sounds carried through the air. Laughter, but not the kind that brings comfort. Hyenas, patient, calculating, waiting for the inevitable moment when struggle turns into surrender. The calf lifted his head weakly, his wide eyes scanning a world that had already given up on him. He tried to crawl, dragging his fragile body forward, but it was useless. The scent of fear had already spread, and the circle of danger was closing in. This was how it always ended in the wild. No second chances, no miracles, just silence. But something changed. Far across the open land, a herd of elephants moved with steady purpose, their massive feet pressed deep into the dry soil, each step carrying the weight of experience, memory, and survival. At the front was a matriarch named Margaret, a giant not just in size, but in presence. Her tusks curved gracefully, worn by years of leading, protecting, and enduring everything the wild had thrown at her. She had seen life begin, and she had seen it end. But as the wind shifted, she stopped. Her trunk rose slowly, tasting the air, reading a story no one else could sense. Something was wrong. It wasn't danger. It wasn't water. It was something fragile, fading. Without hesitation, she turned. The herd paused, uncertain, but Margaret had already made her decision, and wherever she went, they followed. The closer they got, the clearer it became, the faint, broken movements of a creature that shouldn't have been alone. When they finally reached him, the sight brought their entire herd to a halt. The giraffe calf lay in the dust, barely moving, his energy almost gone. Around him, the distant shapes of hyenas lingered, watching, waiting for their moment. The younger elephants shifted uneasily. This wasn't their world. This wasn't their fight. But Margaret stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. She approached the car. Her shadow covered him completely, a towering figure against his fragile form. The calf flinched slightly, too weak to run, too exhausted to resist. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of harm, he felt a gentle touch. Margaret's trunk reached out, brushing softly along his side, as if trying to understand him, as if trying to comfort him. The calf let out a faint sound, somewhere between fear and relief. The hyenas moved closer. Their eyes gleamed with anticipation, their bodies low to the ground, testing the space between hunger and risk. But then Margaret shifted, her weight one step forward, heavy, controlled, unshakable. The ground itself seemed to respond. That was enough to change everything. The herd closed ranks behind her, forming a silent wall of power. The hyenas hesitated, their confidence slipping. This was no longer an easy kill. This was something else entirely. After a tense standoff, they retreated, their laughter fading into the distance. But Margaret didn't move. She stayed because she knew something the others didn't want to admit. If they left now, the car would die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. The wild had already made its decision. Unless she changed it, the next few moments would define everything. The herd began to shift, some stepping away, urging movement, survival, continuation. But Margaret didn't follow. She turned back to their car, lowering her head, her trunk gently nudging him again. This time, it wasn't just curiosity, it was a choice. The calf tried to stand. His legs shook violently, collapsing under him once more. But Margaret didn't step away. She stayed close, her presence steady, patient. Again and again, she encouraged him, guiding him, refusing to give up even when his body seemed ready to. And then, slowly, or unsteadily, our rose. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't strong, but it was enough. From that moment on, something impossible began to take shape. Margaret didn't leave him behind. She didn't return to the herd's original path. Instead, she adjusted, slowing her pace, guiding him step by step, her massive body always close enough to shield him from danger. The herd, confused but loyal, followed. The journey became harder, the sun burned hotter, the land grew drier, and every mile tested the limits of survival. The calf struggled constantly, his energy fading, his steps uneven. There were moments when he collapsed completely, unable to move, his body pushed beyond what it could handle. The herd grew restless. Time was precious. Water was far. Every delay carried risk. But Margaret never abandoned him. When he couldn't reach the leaves high above, she broke branches with her strength, lowering them gently so he could eat. When he lagged behind, she stayed with him, refusing to move forward without him. And when danger approached, she became something else entirely, not just a protector, but a force that no predator dared to challenge. Days turned into weeks. The calf began to change. His legs grew stronger, his steps more confident. The fear that once filled his eyes slowly gave way to something new. Trust. He stayed close to Margaret, often brushing against her as if she were the only safe place left in the world. And in many ways, she was. But the wild never stops testing those who dare to defy it. One night, under a sky filled with cold, distant stars, the danger returned. This time, it wasn't laughter in the distance. It was silence, the kind that comes just before something strikes. A pride of lions had been watching, waiting for weakness, for opportunity. And tonight, they moved. The calf was the target. He always would be. The first movement came like a shadow breaking free from the darkness. Then another, and another. The lions circled, their bodies low, their focus sharp. This was their moment. But Margaret was already moving. She stepped forward, placing herself directly between the calf and their approaching threat. Her ears spread wide, her trunk lifting high as a deep, thunderous rumble echoed from her chest. It wasn't fear, it was a warning. The herd responded instantly, forming a protective barrier. The ground trembled as they shifted, their presence overwhelming, their unity unbreakable. The lions hesitated, calculating the risk. Hunger pushed them forward, but something stronger pushed back. Margaret charged. The force of her movement shattered their silence, her massive frame cutting through the night with unstoppable power. Dust rose beneath her feet as she drove the lions back, step by step, refusing to give them even a single chance. The herd joined her, their combined strength turning the tide completely. And just like that, it was over. The lions disappeared into their darkness, their opportunity gone. The calf stood untouched, and in that moment, something undeniable became clear. This wasn't just survival anymore. This wasn't instinct. This was something deeper, something the wild couldn't explain. Months passed, and the impossible became reality. The calf, once abandoned and helpless, now walked with strength, his long legs steady, his movements confident. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living, and though he would always be different, always stand apart in appearance, he was no longer alone, because in a world that had rejected him, one soul had chosen him. Margaret had given him more than protection. She had given him a place in a world that had none for him. And maybe that's the part of their wild we don't talk about enough. Not just the struggle, not just the survival, but the moments where something unexpected breaks through, where compassion exists in a place that seems built only on instinct. If this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something beyond words, take a second to like this video and share it with someone who needs to see it. And if you want more stories like this, real, emotional, unforgettable moments from the wild, make sure you subscribe and stay with us, because their next story might be even more incredible.